Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our last panel, Enhancing European Union and Latin America Relations in a Changing Global Order, Perspectives from Brussels, Warsaw, and Mexico City. We had the opportunity to meet today at the time of a profound global transformations, and the international system is marked by increasing uncertainty, strategic competition among major powers, economic fragmentation, and geopolitical tensions, as we could see in the first and the second session. In this challenging context, the relationship between the European Union and Latin America, and particularly between the EU and Mexico, becomes even more essential. Strengthening these ties is not only about fostering economic cooperation, it is about promoting political dialogue, defending shared values and multilateral system, and building resilience against the risks of confrontation and instability. In this panel, we will reflect on where we stand today and where we should move forward to build a stronger and more effective partnership between the European Union and Mexico, from the perspective of obviously of Poland, Mexico, and European Union. Our discussion will be structured in two rounds. The first will focus on the current state of relations, and the second round will explore future perspectives and recommendations. And finally, I hope we will have a third round dedicated to questions and answers from the audience. Before we begin, let me introduce briefly our distinguished panelists. And I will start with Ambassador Francisco André. Thank you for accepting the invitation. Thank you for coming here to take the Monterrey and to participate in this conference. Ambassador Francisco André is Ambassador of the European Union to Mexico since September 2024, 8 months, approximately 8 months so far. He previously served as Portugal's Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs and Cooperations between 2020-24, Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister of Portugal 2018-2020, and as a diplomatic advisor at the EU Permanent Representation. He holds a law degree from the University of Lisbon, specializing in legal and economic affairs, and began his career as a lawyer. We have also Dr. Érika Ruiz. Thank you for coming, for accepting this invitation. She is visiting scholar at the Center for Research and Teaching in Economics, CIDE, here in Mexico City, specializing in Latin America relations and European integration. She holds degrees from El Colegio de México, Princeton University, ITAM, and the Autonomous University of Barcelona, where she is a PhD candidate. She has held senior positions at Mexico's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and represented Mexico in MICTA and the G20. She has also served as Director of Foreign Affairs Latin America and Strategic Analyst at Fundación Carolina in Madrid. She is member of COMEXI. And online we have, Bartek is connected, we have Bartlomiej Znojek. He is a Latin America analyst at the Polish Institute of International Affairs, PISM. Previously, he worked also in the private sector with Jones Lang LaSalle and Procter & Gamble. His research focuses on Latin America and Latin America's political and economic dynamics, international cooperation, EU and Polish relations with the Latin American partners. He holds a master's degree in international relations and Latin American studies from the Jagiellonian University in Krakow. So thank you all once again for being here, and we will start our first round of questions. And let me start with Ambassador Francisco André. Ambassador, we have a very long and rich history of EU-Mexico relations, with a global agreement as a framework for these relations. Could you please present us the current state of relations between the European Union and Mexico from the, obviously, Brussels perspective? The floor is yours.
Can I use this? Good morning, good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much for the question. Allow me to start by thanking all of you for the invitation and to say that I'm really honored to participate today and to see so many friendly faces of these discussions that we are holding together for the last couple of months. First, of course, let me allow to thank the ambassador of Poland, the great friend Agnieszka, the Monterrey. The TEC is a partner of the European Union delegation, also COMEXI and Hector Cárdenas. It's always great to see you again. The Polish Institute of International Affairs, obviously, for organizing this. But allow me, of course, to greet and welcome the presence of Dr. Paweł Kowal, the chair of the Committee of Foreign Affairs of the Polish Parliament. You, Beata, of course, and a very good and dear friend of mine, Ambassador Feller, that, as usual, was allowed to give us a lesson on how to see the world from Mexico. From Brussels and even from Mexico City, how are things going between Mexico and European Union? The first thing that we can never forget is that we are not only like-minded or partners or friends, we are strategic partners. And we are strategic partners because Mexico is one of the 10 countries in the world with whom we have a strategic partnership, to whom we have special agreements, and we have this strategic partnership with Mexico, not out of the blue, because with Mexico we share a very important set common principles, interests, and values, and this is the basis of our relationship with Mexico, because we tend to think alike in many issues. We both, Mexico and European Union, we support multilateralism, and today, as I just heard, this is more needed than ever in the last decades. We suppose the rules-based international order, both of us, and we work together. We work very closely together, actually, at the multilateral platforms, namely at the United Nations. And on these things I mentioned, the United Nations, allow me to thank Mexico and to ask Ambassador Feller to take the message to the ministry, to the SRE, for the positive work, the approach, the attitude since ever from Mexico, and even recently, the way that Mexico acted once again in solidarity, well, with the values and principles of the UN, but also with the European Union, in the voting at the UN condemning Russia's illegal aggression and invasion of Ukraine. This is a very sensitive topic for us. This is not a threat, and we can go there further. This is not a threat only to Ukraine, to the Ukrainians, or even to our European security. We need to understand this is a serious threat to all the basic principles of international law, namely sovereignty and the right of territorial integrity. But we were speaking about multilateralism, and when I was saying that we work together, and we work together in the multilateral platforms in a number of areas. We work together, we present resolutions, we support policies to support human rights, gender equality, sustainable development, and climate action. Climate action, a specific sector where Mexico is putting forward a very ambitious agenda, where we are not only very much aligned, as we are very supportive of this new ambition and political priorities of Mexico, because they are not only political priorities of Mexico, they are our political priorities, and when I say our, they are common. We share them, we work together, and these are the areas where both Mexico and the European Union we are working already together, but where we can work much more. Mexico, we use a sentence in Brussels when thinking and reflecting on Mexico, is that Mexico matters. Mexico is a giant. It's one of the most important countries in the world. It has a role of leadership in every organization and in every platform that where Mexico is involved. We look at Mexico, we look also at our relation with Latin America. We are having European Union CELAC summit in November in Colombia, where not only will we expect good results and to work together with all the countries, but never forgetting that Mexico plays a key role of leadership also in this organization, as we are working with Mexico to have a COP30, a successful COP30 later down the year in Brazil. But this bilateral relation, based on values, principles, is also based on interests, and interests to generate better opportunities to both our nations and to our people. And this also means that we engage a lot in supporting each other, achieving more prosperity, creating more opportunities for our companies and jobs for our citizens. We have, as some of you know, we have what we call the global agreement between Mexico and the European Union. We call it global. It's called global because it's not a mere economic agreement. It's an agreement between countries that are friends and partners and that share a lot. We have many economic agreements and trade agreements with many countries in the world. With Mexico, we have a global agreement because it's much bigger. Our relationship is much bigger than only trade. But on trade, we have been working for the last 25 years. This agreement was signed in 1998, and it started. It was enforced on the 1st of January of 2000. During the last 25 years, this agreement was the basis to a stronger relationship between us. During these 25 years, we quadrupled our trade and commercial flows between Mexico and the European Union. We are in April 25. In April 25, we are the second investor in this country, the European Union and its member states. We are the third economic partner of Mexico, because the second is China. We are only the third, but we are the second destination for Mexican exports. Why? Because we have a balanced relationship. There's a difference. We have a balanced relationship between us. We import a lot from Mexico, and we have our companies here in Mexico as the second largest investor in this country. And the second largest investor in this country in sectors of cutting-edge technology, of the vanguardia of what we need to produce. European companies are very happy in Mexico, obviously, but they are very happy in Mexico because we are working together to make the most of one of the most, or probably the most valuable thing of Mexico, which is the Mexicans, its human resources. I tend to visit a lot of European companies around this country. It's no longer a surprise to visit any company, especially high-tech companies, and find hundreds of new young Mexican engineers. Some of them from the Tech Monterrey that I had the opportunity to visit a couple of months ago. They're in a good symbiosis between the needs of formation, long-term, deep and just employment with good salaries. Sometimes people wonder what is the real importance of the EU, its member states, and European companies in its country. The answer is quite simple: 6 million jobs. 6 million jobs. 6 million jobs in the most modern factories of car industry in this country, in pharma, in technological services. This is why we are working so much, and the same. But this is a two-way corridor. This is why we are so eager we were so eager to conclude the negotiations on the new agreement, to modernize this agreement after 25 years. And this is why we are so eager now to work quietly and with time in a structured way for its signature, also to allow more Mexican investment in our countries in the European Union. And what we have been seeing is that this close cooperation between companies, universities, thousands of Mexican students going also to the European Union, coming here to train with the companies, this is giving a very positive result and atmosphere. I have to say that, and I will be quiet in 10 seconds, or okay, 65 seconds, that we are having good momentum, and we must make the most out of it. I arrived in September, a new government started in office in Mexico on the 1st of October. 1 month later, we had a new commission, same president, but a new commission in Brussels, a new president of the European Council, and a new High Representative for Foreign Affairs. And the fact is that in the last months, we have already done a lot. Well, at the top, we announced the two countries, Mexico and European Union, the conclusion of the negotiations of this modernized global agreement. The number of visits of European Union officials to Mexico and of Mexican officials to the European Union has been skyrocketing. Friday, after a very demanding, very rewarding week, we had the visit here of the number 2 of the European Commission that came to Mexico, Vice President Teresa Rivera, that came to Mexico in her first bilateral visit outside Europe. So this is also a sign and illustration of why is Mexico so important and why that we really consider Mexico a priority, and we want to work closer. The world is turbulent enough today, and we cannot afford to feed that turbulence and tensions. We are in the business of making friends, not enemies. This is the EU perspective. This is how we work. This is how we are working with Mexico. This is how I think that we can foster a long-term, even better relationship with Mexico. And this will not stop here. We are turning to May. The European Council Group for Latin America needs to decide once a year or every 2 years, needs to decide on a country to visit, which is the country that they are going to visit now, Mexico. On the mid-May, the Joint Parliamentary Committee, so members of the Chamber of Deputies, Cámara de Diputados here in Mexico, and the Senate, together with members of the European Parliament, are going to have their session in Brussels and in Warsaw in Poland. Another sign that we are working to be closer and closer. And I said a lot EU, but when I say European Union is not only the European Union. The European Union is basically the member states of the European Union. And this is why we also support and encourage the participation of the European Union member states to come more to Mexico, to interact more with Mexico, and to have high-level visits. This is why the visit of Dr. Pavel Kowal today, this week, is so important for us, because it's another visit by the European Union. And this is how we should continue this relationship. We don't have a choice. I used to say that we don't have an alternative. And the world is becoming increasingly dangerous even, that countries that share the same ideas, the same principles, that have the same objectives, we also want to generate a sociedad de bienestar to our countries in the European Union. And this is something that we can achieve together. So, to sum up to your question, how are we doing today?
Great.
Yes. Compared to the rest of the world, I think that we have the proper basis to say that we are doing good. We are doing good. We are never satisfied. But luckily, both from the Mexican side and European Union side, we are able to set the basis for an even stronger and better relationship in the coming future. Sam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ambassador, thank you very much for your perspective from the European Union. There's a huge potential, no doubt. Compared with the rest of the world, probably Mexico and the European Union, we are doing quite well. However, and this is why I want to ask now Érika. She has been dealing with the European Union for several years, and I would ask Érika to bring this Mexican perspective to this debate. And to ask you about how have relations with the European Union evolved, and where do they currently stand within Mexico's foreign policy priorities?
Okay.
I think this could work.
This one works?
Also. Yeah.
Okay.
If not, I pass you this one.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a privilege to be here and to discuss things about Europe, which is not the occasion in Mexico very frequently. That's something we have to start with. I'm happy to hear Ambassador André being so optimistic about the relation, but my role as a Europeanist and as an academic is to question some things about the state of affairs. Again, with the constructive purpose of making them better. When we see how Mexico has dealt with Europe historically, well, when this country became independent, the first thing we wanted was the recognition from the European powers. So they've always been there as kind of a very special partner. Since the European integration process started, we've observed it from Mexico with keen attention because, again, it's one of the most extraordinary experiments in politics that we've ever seen, and perhaps the most successful project in terms of integration. And that has always been an aspiration for Latin America, where in many ways we have more similarities among Latin Americans than you yourselves have among Europeans, and yet you have been able to integrate while we haven't in many different ways. I mean, yes, we do have some kind of experimentation with integration, but not as advanced or as successful as the European exercise. In the case of Mexico, our relationship, I think, is strange because you're the eternal second. You're the eternal second partner because we have another one, which is the United States. And I think for yourselves, it's the same case. The United States is way more important for you than what Mexico can be, as well as Latin America. I mean, the relationship is radically different. But again, from the Mexican perspective, we've always had the silent desire that you could perhaps become the substitute of the United States. And that is completely impossible. That will never happen. But at times, we would love to have an alternative. You say, we have no alternative. Well, that's so true. And so that's why we put a lot of emphasis on this narrative of being like-minded and being strategic partners. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty, I think we have very different perspectives on what's going on in the world and our own role in the world. The European Union is certainly a trade power as no other. We don't have that kind of power. You have dangerous borders. We do too. And unfortunately, yes, sometimes when we see Mexico in the abstract in terms of its size, its economy, its population, etc., we can think Mexico should definitely have the role of the leader or a leadership role. But the truth is we don't have one. Not with Latin America, that's for sure. If we can think of a Latin American leader, I think we would mostly say Brazil rather than Mexico, especially since we looked towards the north and created this huge alliance with the United States and Canada. For many Latin American partners, that was kind of a divorce from them, even if we culturally still are Latin American in many ways. And as a strategic partner, I wonder if the European Union truly sees us as a strategic partner when we have not been able to answer with enough force when you guys have been in trouble, particularly I think with the case of the Ukraine. As we know, in the United Nations, our permanent mission has always supported the idea that it's wrong for Russia to invade the Ukraine, but that has not been the conversation in Mexico, particularly from the presidency, in the case of López Obrador, and in the public opinion. We do not necessarily see as clearly that Russia is the aggressor and that the Ukraine is the victim, and what that entails in terms of violating international rules and international law. I think that is a conversation we still need to have. And that has to do also with the penetration of the Russians in Mexico. Since the Cold War, I mean, I don't know if everybody has seen the Russian embassy. It's huge. And it does not correspond to the kind of relationship we have with Russia. It was known in the Cold War that they used it for spying on the United States. Okay. There's even a great novel called the Mongol Complot that you should read if you want to understand that period. But the question is, why is it nowadays the largest delegation of a foreign country in Mexico? It's larger than the American delegation. And that is the case with Russia. We trade with Russia in a year what we trade with the United States in a day. And in the number of Russians in Mexico, there are not very many, so they're not there for consular protection or whatever it is. So one wonders, why are they here? What we sell to Russia is pepper, in case you were wondering. And that is the highlight of our trade with the Russians. So why do they have the largest delegation in Mexico City? And that happened during the past administration in Mexico. López Obrador allowed for that to happen. We also have a deep penetration of Russian TV, that means Russia Today and Sputnik, in Mexican public television, and even in the Metrobús, but they transmitted Russia Today, and as we know, that is an instrument of propaganda. So I wonder if we are really understanding the same from the European Union and from Mexico of what it means to be strategic partners in that case. In the case of trade, yes. If we tell the story the way Ambassador André has told it, it's a great story of success. Trade has quadrupled in 25 years, but the question is, where did we start from? Right? Because if we started from 1, that means now we have 4. That's amazing. But it's still not even the 10% of Mexicans' foreign trade. So I think there's a lot of potential there to change things with the European Union, and we can certainly take advantage of our global agreement or the modernized global agreement if it comes to fruition at some point. It's sad to see that the European Union is our third economic partner. Rather, you should be at least the second. I would prefer that as a Europeanist, again, thinking about shared values and principles and the respect of a rules-based world order. Now, in terms of the modernization of the global agreement, I was part of that negotiation, and I think that what shocked me the most was that in Mexico, it's very hard to think about the European Union as such. We still think about the individual countries. So our authorities, our officials, tend to think about France and Spain and Portugal and whatever, hardly about Poland, I have to say, hardly about Croatia, hardly about Slovenia, hardly about the Czech Republic. I used to tell them that we always think about the usual suspects because it's always the same kind of countries. And we do not take advantage of the 27 member states, of having this close relationship with the 27 member states. We don't have the same kind of interests. And with the one that we had the closest relationship because of historical reasons, etc., is with Spain. And both in the past government and in this one, we're in a big fight with Spain because we want Spain to say, I'm sorry for the colonial period. no? Which is like, oh my God, well, aren't we in 2025? Shouldn't we be looking forward, especially with the state of affairs in the world? Shouldn't we be looking for stronger partnerships rather than the United States, since now they've gone weird, to say the least? The other thing I have to say in terms of the relationship between Mexico and the European Union is that it's a very institutionalized relationship. We have institutions for everything. I always say that if you don't pay attention and you're next to a European, they will create an institution immediately. That's the way they function. But even for a country as big as Mexico, it's hard sometimes to deal with the number of institutions we have in that relationship. And sometimes it's difficult to have all the dialogues and all the meetings and all the things that we have as part of the toolkit of our global agreement and our strategic partnership. Again, sometimes because we don't have that kind of human power to deal with all of that. And especially not now when I have to say that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Mexico is going through very low times. I mean, money-wise, budget-wise, it has a very small budget. Things are dire in the Mexican ministry. They've come to the point of not having toilet paper. So again, if we want to think of Mexico as a leader or if Mexico as a relevant actor in the international scenario, well, we should put our money where our thoughts are. And definitely think that we should strengthen our foreign policy and strengthen our presence in the world to do a better job. Again, not because it's fancy, not because it's fashionable, but because it's needed. We tend to think about foreign policy in Mexico many times as an accessory. Like, once we take care of everything else, we do foreign policy. No. Foreign policy is another public policy as any other, and as relevant as all the others, and we should definitely be paying more attention. And I think our relationship with the European Union could be much, much stronger if we actually paid more attention to the European Union and if we actually understood what the European Union means. I understand what you say, Ambassador, about the relationship not being with the European Union alone. It's also with the 27 member states. But we need to put a lot more emphasis on what you've created and the way you act in the world. You're a very strange animal in the international system, no? And it's hard sometimes to understand the way you make policies, the way you act, what topics belong to the European Union, what topics belong to the member states, etc. So it certainly needs certain expertise. And so far, the number of academics, at least interested in Europe, is very little, very reduced for a country like Mexico. So we definitely need to have more conversations with institutions like the Polish Institute, and we should definitely study more Europe rather than thinking that all we have is the United States and Latin America by default. I think we should make a big effort. Again, this is a matter of will, of political will. And I don't see, at least in the present government, that will. Just an anecdote, when we concluded again the negotiations, it's the first time I see negotiations concluded not once, not twice, but 3 times, one wonders. Because we finished the political and cooperation negotiations in 2018, then we finished the trade negotiations in 2020, and all of a sudden we've already finished them again in 2025. Okay, fantastic, they're done. What's relevant to me was that all the European authorities came out on X, formerly Twitter, to announce that, yes, we finished the negotiations with Mexico, fantastic. Not a single Mexican authority came out on X to say that we had finished the negotiations. So I think we're having a secret romance, Ambassador. At least for the Mexican government. We don't want others to know. And I don't know if it's because of the point where we are at, or if we are afraid of a reaction from Donald Trump, in case he knew that we refinished our negotiations to modernize our global agreement. But I think that is very significant in terms of where it stands in the priorities of Mexican foreign policy. Thank you.
Érika, thanks. thanks a lot for your presentation and for bringing to our discussion so many topics and to be so critical but at the same time constructive. Without delay, I would like to pass to our last panelist, Bartek Znojek. Bartek, I would like to ask you to present us the current state of relations between Poland and Mexico and how the European Union changed these ties since 2004 when Poland entered the European Union. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Beata. First of all, it's a great pleasure to participate in such a distinguished panel and in front of such a distinguished audience. Let me start with a broader perspective about Latin America and Polish foreign policy, because this is not an area of top interest for Poland, because there are other more important. But if we look at the hierarchy of partners in the region, big and influential economies are the clear priority, and Mexico and Brazil are one of them. While interest in Brazil is linked also to the second largest Polish descendant community in the world, there are some important aspects that make Mexico an important partner for Poland. OECD was mentioned today. G20 membership is also important. There is another one which attracted a lot of the attention in some time. I mean, the Pacific Alliance. Now it's not so hot topic, but it was really one of the attraction that made Poland more interested in Mexico. Regarding the main areas, I would say, of this relation, it will be political dialogue, economic relations, and people-to-people contact. Regarding political dialogue, I would say that generally Poland and Latin American partners has very low intensity of top-level contacts. There are barely any top-level state visits. Let me give an example of Mexico. The last Mexican president to visit Poland was Vicente Fox in 2004, so the year when Poland joined the EU. The same year, the Polish president visited Guadalajara, but it was because of European Union Latin America Summit. In fact, the first Polish president's state visits happened in 2017 with President Duda. There was no such, and it was even before. And this was really important because of the amount of documented commitments signed by the leaders of Poland and Mexico. Generally, there are meetings on the top level, but they happen mostly at the margin of global meetings, mainly UN General Assembly, and also EU summits with Latin American partners, which was not the case for many years, and we are just reviving that in the EU. The main recurrent format for political dialogue are cyclical consultations between ministries of foreign affairs, and so this is the main platform where current detailed affairs or general international context are discussed. In economy, I will be brief. And generally, Latin America is not an important direction of Polish trade. Mexico is with Brazil are the largest partners for Poland, but let me say, like Mexico in 2024 was 39th partner for Poland with 0.36% of trade, but it's still the biggest export market for Poland in Latin America. And just briefly about people-to-people contact. There is a long tradition of education and academic contacts. I remember from my university studies at the beginning of this century that Mexico was long the only Latin American country to offer a scholarship for Polish students. This changes. We have NAWA, which is the Polish agency for academic exchanges. There, the offer of scholarship is bigger. But I can say on Friday also in Krakow for a conference on Latin America, and I heard a lot of discussion on Mexico and its offer of scholarships. So to add to that, let me move to the importance of EU membership, because I believe this is the key framework that gave a boost for a an expanded relation between Poland and Mexico. Once Poland joined the European Union, it acquired a vast and expanding set of instruments allowing to develop relations with diverse set of partners, not only with Mexico. But Mexico singles out because in the moment Poland joined the European Union, there was already in place the first global agreement between EU, Mexico, and the first such an agreement with Latin American partner of the European Union. And further years, we saw more mechanisms that Poland could enjoy. One of them, that was mentioned, is a strategic partnership with Mexico. And I refer you to the great summary of Ambassador André on the current state with many different platforms, mechanisms that allows EU members to be closer to such partners as Mexico. And a couple of thoughts regarding factors that influenced Poland's relations with Mexico and led to more interest in that country after joining the EU. I believe that the global financial crisis of 2008 was an important moment in Poland for the reflection that there is an important need to think outside of the box because Poland is still very reliable on EU markets regarding trade, but that was the moment when various initiatives appeared on trying to promote Polish presence on less explored markets, and Mexico was one of them. The presidential visit in 2017, I mentioned already, was indeed an important moment. I didn't mention one important document, which was a declaration on working towards the strategic partnership between both countries. I'd argue that the Russian full-scale invasion in 2022 was an important milestone also in changing the mindset, because you could see a very accelerated process in Ukraine to look for the support of the so-called global South countries. But I understand that this way of thinking also affected the strategic reflection in Poland, that it is important to have this dialogue with partners which not necessarily share the same vision of the conflict as those countries neighboring Ukraine, that support that country, and Poland is one of them. What complicated the process was the long break from the EU Latin America summits. Happily, there was a revival of that format in 2023. This year we have this summit in Colombia, Santa Maria. But I think that promissory would be to reactivate the EU summits with Mexico, the part of strategic partnerships of the European Union with various countries. Now, finally, I think the context related to the shifts caused by Trump administration policies make Mexico a major point of attention to learn how the US aggressive and expansionist moves may be addressed or countered. This is a response also to the question of Dr. Ruiz. If we are interested in Poland, in what happens in Mexico, this is at least a point of interest at PISM, at our institute. How the various countries respond to these new dynamics. And this is also the case that we need to understand the other's perspective, not convince, because this was one of the reactions just after the Russian invasion, that we need to convince other countries that we are right. No, like first is to sit and to understand that perspective. So that will be my contribution to what is more or less the state of relations between Poland and Mexico. Thank you.
Bartek, thank you very much for the presentation. As we are a bit short of the time, so I will switch to a Q&A session to collect some questions from our audience, and then we will have the opportunity to finish with the last round. So please raise your hand, present yourself, and put a question. Here on the right side.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. I'm wondering to ask this question. Do you think the logistic questions and geographical distance between Mexico and the European Union could be the main problem of the commercial aspects?
More questions, please.
Well, thank you very much for the great panel. The thing is that really I have one historical moment in my life that we have the opportunity to have some scholarship to Poland. And this matter created me a fantastic way, because education in Poland is fantastic in everything, in the art, in the politics, in the economics, and I have this experience. But I have to tell you that it's important is to make more exchange of scholarships, of education between these two countries, because really we have to a lot to discover of each culture of each country. And why I'm telling you this, because in the moment that we want to ask for a scholarship, the European Union give one scholarship for England, one for France, one for Italy, for Germany, and there were more opportunities in Poland and Russia. There were 5 scholarships and 5 scholarships for Russia. So, I mean, this is important to create and to have this opportunity to make more scholarships for students for this because they give a lot of chance to understand another country. And this is a very good experience of my life because when the ambassador tell me, well, why you don't come back to Mexico and give the things that you were learning in Poland, and I said yes, okay, and it was very interesting because of my point of view, the university is very different than
From the others.
and this is interesting. But on the other hand, I understand too that all Latin America or these universities have scholarship for Spain, and only Spain and Spain and Spain. And they think that the European Union are Spain, Italy, or France. And this is the thing that we have to change. And I think that international relationship between these countries, I mean, it's important to develop this kind of situation about education. Okay.
Very short, okay? I have one question to Dr. Érika, because in your excellent intervention, I noticed that you mentioned, the problem of leadership in Latin America, and you mentioned Brazil, with some kind of sentiment, right? And that why about Mexico. And I would like to try to understand, because in terms of population, economic potential, it's not a big difference, right? But the Brazil plays, especially now, a role of a very, let's say, anti-Western leader of the region, while Mexico is still, let's say, a like-minded country. So, in your perspective, do you think that Mexico would be a leader of Latin America, like being less connected to the Western or North countries, or maybe should make some profit from much closer relation with Western countries than Brazil, and using this potential to be a leader in Latin America? So this is my question to you: how to make Mexico a true leader? Or
Great
not?
again. Yeah.
Let them-
I'm kidding.
It's related to what you were just asking, but I want to try to see the other side of the story. And I would actually ask Érika, because you're not representing a country, which I know is always very difficult to express some opinions. What can we do, if anything, of how to navigate this change that is already happening in countries like Mexico, but not just Mexico, that we have to, that's the question, do we have to be strategically ambiguous, or is it a choice, and what are the paths that ambiguity allows us, or any other countries, like maybe Poland? So, thank you.
This is yours.
Yes, very bad. And Bartek.
Hard questions. I don't know if there someone more, some question, or we can pass to the last round. We can pass now to the last round. You can respond to questions, or you can make remarks about comments from other panelists. So, who wants to start? Érika, maybe. Then we will pass the floor to Bartek, and finally Ambassador.
Okay. I think we're at a very crucial point, and decisions must be made. The first thing is Mexico cannot be a neutral country. We cannot be that. That's for sure. And we've tried. During the past administration and this one, we're like, we don't have an opinion. No, we have to have an opinion because our life depends on that. I mean, we need to understand that. And that's why we should be much more proactive in searching international partnerships with like-minded countries. I was joking when I asked my question that we needed group therapy with the Europeans, but I think it is a good idea. I mean, we should talk together and say, well, if the United States has changed that much, what can we do together to revert, or to survive that kind of change? Because it's going to be tough for the Europeans, but it's going to be super tough for the Mexicans. And we definitely basically put all our eggs in that basket. That's what changed with our foreign policy at some point. We decided, well, our road is North America, and there forever and ever. All of a sudden, what we thought was a trustworthy partner is not. I think you realized the same with the United States, and you realized it since Trump won, that the United States is not an unconditional partner for you. Because when he started questioning NATO, etc., I think alarms went off in Europe, but I don't think you did enough then, and that's why we have to rush now, because the nightmare became true. What was hinted in Trump 1 is just become a very dark reality in Trump 2. I say the same about Mexico. We should have taken note from Trump 1 and made some changes in order not to be in the situation we are at now, when we are just constantly threatened by him with tariffs, with soldiers, with drone attacks, with whatever. And that certainly changes the logic of the way we had our relationship with the United States. Now, from the perspective of Mexico, and I think also of the rest of Latin America, we've been very slow to react to a series of changes in the world. We did not react with the pandemic. We're not reacting now. We haven't been able to speak or at least to coordinate some kind of position. And we're becoming, as Latin America, more an object than a subject in the international sphere. Everybody talks about us, but we don't have agency to say, well, this is where we want to go as Latin America. And I think that is also very frustrating in the EU CELAC meetings, because you expect the CELAC to have one voice, and all of a sudden you find out we have 33 voices. The meetings must be spectacular. Because the Europeans talk once, and then you have to hear the 33 Latin American and Caribbean countries. And if we take the last meeting, the main the main point that Latin Americans wanted to make was retribution for the colonial era. Again, we're looking to the past, not the future. We're not ready to face what's coming to us, and we're very slow to react in that sense. And that is basically because there's no true leadership in Latin America, and I explain why. You were mentioning what is the difference with Brazil. Brazil, as a country, made the decision not only to be a regional power, but a world power. And they've been working towards that for a really long time. In Mexico, we have never had that kind of conversation. We take the leadership for granted. It's like, oh, come on, who wouldn't love us? We're fantastic. No, and yes, on paper, we're fantastic, but at the same time, we have a series of shortcomings. And those shortcomings will become a true reality and a true obstacle now, when our main partner is not responding. And therefore, we should look for something else, but in a very dire situation. I mean, jobs will be lost, remittances will fall, Mexicans will come back to I don't know what, to a very violent and a complicated country. And those conditions, I wonder, and I also asked my question to Ambassador André, if are going to be an obstacle for the signing and the ratification of our agreement with the European Union. We know how the European Parliament looks at us in terms of human rights and journalists and defenders of human rights. I mean, our record is not a pretty one. And I wonder if they will take things in a different way in terms of we both need this modernized agreement to enter into force as soon as possible in order to have tools to defend ourselves from the changes in the world. Now, about trade, you were asking what's the difference. The Mexican exporters just got very used to exporting to the US market. It's very close, it's very comfortable. And part of the mistakes that have been made have been, for example, thinking that the European consumer is like the American consumer. And that's not true. I mean, Europeans would never have 5 TVs in their house, would you? Americans would. No? One in the kitchen, one in the lounge, 2 in the bedrooms, and 1 in the bathroom. But that is one of our main products that we export. So when we think, okay, if the US market is going to close, what are we going to do with the 5 TVs we sell to each American household? Do the Europeans want them? I don't think so. So we would definitely have to reformulate and change and start understanding what the European consumer wants. And of course, our main export will not be avocados, perhaps, because by the time they get to Europe, they will not be useful.
No.
Or maybe.
Don't say that.
I know. But it's going to take time. I mean, it's not the same to put avocados in the United States the next day for the Super Bowl as to take avocados across the Atlantic to Europe. That makes a difference.
There are some avocados Mexicans sold in EU.
I know. There are some, but it's not a
process,
huge market to sell avocados. But we should start thinking differently. What I think is happening is and the European Union has taught us this. Only big crises force humans to do what they wouldn't do otherwise. And so I think this big crisis with the United States should force us both to do something different. We have the tools. We perhaps have the interest, or we should reinforce that interest with scholarships, with getting to know each other better. And we should take a chance, because if it's, in the case of Mexico, if it's not with the European Union, then with whom? You understand that with China, we cannot do it, because that would be very dangerous. Very dangerous. With Latin America, it's not an alternative. Latin America does not offer a market such as the American market or what could potentially be the European market. So we definitely need to reframe our relations and not only take note and be content about what we have. I think we should work stronger, and I'm also asking civil society to understand that we need to do a different effort and a big effort to get closer to the Europeans. And the effort has to come from Mexico rather than the Europeans. The Europeans, as Ambassador André was referring to, have done their part. They come, they follow, they want, they call us, and we are like, well, I don't know if I can do it now. Well, it's now or never, basically. I mean, there's no time for hesitation at this point in time. And so again, if we want to be what we can be in the world as Mexico, we certainly need to change our view of the world, our strategy, and make a decision. It's going to be dangerous, yes, but also not moving is very dangerous. So far, we're playing the same strategy like some animals that fake death, not to be attacked. That's what we've done with the United States. I mean, they threaten us and we're like, and maybe if we don't move, they won't see us. Well, there comes a time when, why aren't we calling our European partners and saying, hey, did you see what he did to me? No, and try to start a conversation and say, hey, can we really play ball together? When we have coincidences in votes, is by luck, by chance, because we don't really get together to talk about the positions. And I've seen it in the flesh. In the G20, we don't sit with the Europeans and say, why don't we do this? And we faced Trump 1, that's when I was there, when he was saying that climate change did not exist. And Europeans and Mexicans would look at each other like, does it exist? No. And they were like, well, yeah, but he doesn't want the word in the declaration. Oh my God. So what do we do? Well, let's not put it because he's going to get mad. And we're like, we're many more. I understand the power of the United States, but so far, if they're going to play the way they're playing in this 100 days, I think we should better find alternatives, for sure.
Thank you, Érika. I say we should reinforce interest and reframe our relations with the key point, no doubts. And I pass to Bartek. Bartek, please, with your remarks, and then I will give the floor to Ambassador. We are out of the time, but the discussion is very interesting, so I think we can give you more space. But please, Bartek, now the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Beata. I couldn't hear part of conversation, so sorry if I can't address all the comments that should be addressed. Let me just come back to one document that was published less than a decade ago by Poland and Mexico. It was a recommendation for the strengthening of relations between both countries. It was a result of consultations among decision makers, academics, and experts, and its conclusions are still valid. Commercial cooperation is the cornerstone of bilateral relations. Political dialogue needs to be enhanced. And there is big potential related to the European Union. Let me go back to one comment regarding these recommendations related to how Mexico perceives European Union, because it's not only Mexico. That Germany, France are the main partners, Spain, Portugal as traditional historical partners. So for Poland, there's an important challenge task to build a position of a trusted and influential country member in the EU and be more visible. This is not an easy task, but this is an effort that could allow to be perceived as an important partner for dialogue by various different kind of partners. When it comes to this loud intensity of top-level contacts in case of Poland and Mexico, there is a more need on more interactions on all other levels. I'd say, for example, that interparliamentary relations are important. There was a visit of Mexican parliamentarians in Poland recently. Federal level in Mexico is really important because in Poland we don't have such strong regional governments as in federal structure in Mexico. So even for Poland national government level, it is important to perceive governors as very influential partners. The EU mechanism, of course, more developed, it is more important for Poland. This is something which should be considered. I would like to add one thing which is more related to the work PISM does, our institute, expert level dialogue. It's really important to understand mutual perspectives on that level, where we not just want to hear the perspective, but to understand and translate it into recommendations, political recommendations for decision makers. So I really hope personally, and I believe that my director, Dr. Karpowicz, will echo that. This cooperation is really important for also as part of bilateral relations. And let me just say that to refer to two comments related to the reform of the UN system. I think this is one of the examples where Poland can dialogue with Mexico. Ambassador Feller commented on that similar voting patterns in the UN, and Ambassador Ruiz said about coalition of willing. Why don't we think about this kind of initiative? And finally, why don't we come back to the document on recommendations elaborated in 2016? We update that and think about the new ways how to strengthen our relations. Thank you.
Bartek, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Bartek, yes, no. Thank you very much for this list of recommendations. I think to be more visible for Poland is very important in this context, and especially in the context of Polish presidency at the Council of the European Union. So I think it's good time to talk about these issues, and good time also to make further plans about connections between researchers and think tanks and universities. But now, Ambassador, the floor is yours to finish this session.
Thank you, Beata. I will be much more optimistic than Érika. She tried to affect me as the last night's episode of The Last of Us. I was negative. But I don't lose my optimistic and positive perspective about all this. As I said before, we are going through a very good moment. We are going through a very good moment because we tend to work for that together, both Mexico and the EU, but also for the current geopolitical moment that we're living, are forcing responsible, like-minded countries that reach authorities, this is the case of Mexico and the European Union, tend to really fight and support basic things like democracy, science, believe that climate is changing, and adapt ourselves to that. Very basic things, but it's very basic things are bringing us together. And we, as I repeat it again, we don't have an alternative. In an increasingly stranger world, we, the European Union and Mexico, we don't have an alternative than to work more together, than to deepen this ties, links, this relationship. Érika provoked that, saying that we vote frequently together at the UN, and sometimes out of luck. That part is not true. We work a lot together, both our teams, both here in Mexico, at the UN. We work a lot together, but we vote in the same manner, with the same pattern, because we really do believe and we share the same principles and values. On the regional role of Mexico, this is always a strange conversation to have, whether we are in academia or in a more political / diplomatic atmosphere. And sometimes people don't get that. From outside, Mexico is a giant. It's huge. Everybody looks at Mexico. The ones of us that work at the UN level, in order to anticipate any decision, any discussion, you don't get to start without talking to Mexico. Because Mexico matters, and matters a lot, and matters a lot. And in every perspective of this country. This is why on the regional level we are having this EU-CELAC summit again in Colombia in November, and we have our hopes quite high regarding that summit, because the last summit that interrupted a long period without summits was in 2021 when Mexico took a key role in the leadership that allowed to arrive to that summit and to present a new perspective that we can really work together. Of course that we are different organizations, CELAC and the EU, we are not the same. Érika said that we have, if you don't pay attention, we have another institution, the European Union.
Well, with others.
Yeah. The thing is that we, that part, I really like that we like that. But anytime the European Union is this very peculiar organization, and whenever we want to make a change to our working methods or system, it takes years. If you think it's hard here, you don't imagine what it is to decide among 27. So our institutions, from that perspective, are quite stable. But we have two things that are the cause of this optimism regarding the future. Global agreement, once again, and global agreement was a couple of months ago or weeks ago, even complemented by the Mexican president in one of the morning press conferences. Global agreement is to add 130 million Mexicans to 450 million Europeans. This is a block of consumers that is very important. And the avocado, the coffee, the cocoa, the chile habanero, the tequila, the mezcal, just to name the agriculture. You have 450 million people eager to consume, to spend their money. But you know what is the best part of this global agreement when it comes to this kind of exports? Because we are putting all our efforts, and when I say we, is Mexico and European Union, also to transform, to go further, to have a more sustainable agriculture, to be more modern. This is where we are, what we are aiming at. And this is why I'm very optimistic about the global agreement. And the global agreement brings a very simple message. Whenever some other countries, especially here, the northern neighbor speaks about aranceles, the global agreement is all about not having aranceles. That's our perspective. We are not here to bring tariffs, to bring obstacles, we don't want to undermine the global trade. The global trade is positive. It develops our societies, our countries, brings more jobs, more opportunities. And this is the spirit of this modernization of the global agreement. And then, also a very important agenda that we have been sharing a lot between European Union and Mexico, which is what we call our global gateway agenda. Our global gateway is a name, a title, an acronym to illustrate as the European Union and its member states can work together on this Team Europe spirit with different countries. And in the case of Mexico, where transition, green transition, climate transition, more sustainable forms of energy, more sustainable forms of transportation. This is what we are doing. This is why we are spending thousands of millions of euros investing together with the Mexican authorities and with Mexican companies to develop these sectors in this country. But ultimately, if we really want to be close together, if we want to deepen this relationship, all this comes to people, to our people-to-people connection. How do we interact as citizens of both the EU and Mexico? This is why to have more scholarships on Erasmus, it's so important. Mexico is the second country in the world that gets more scholarships from Erasmus+. This is why we need to keep going, to invest more, to interact more. Allow me, before concluding that, we are starting the month of May next Friday. The month of May for the European Union member states, for all the ambassadors, for the European Union delegation in Mexico, it's going to be quite an important month. We call it the Month of Europe, not only because we are going to celebrate together on the 8th of May the 75 years of the Schuman Declaration, but because we are going to organize a series of seminars and meetings like this across the country in universities. We're going to have dozens of these opportunities to interact. Me, all the other ambassadors, all our colleagues from the embassies of the European Union member states. It's going to be the month that we're going to have the Festival of European Cinema here in Mexico, and not only in Mexico City, around the country, because that is also important. This is why already Saturday and Sunday we are going to have two very important events at Chapultepec and at the Cinemateca for kids regarding child literature. This is why me, Ambassador Agnieszka, all our colleagues, this is why we're going to be all over TVs, radios, and the press to explain why we are working so much to deepen this relationship. Because we think at the end of the day, I had the opportunity to visit in Barrio more or less a month ago, a couple of European companies, in which one was working like 1,000 Mexican engineers. And then you understand how great this country is. We are not here to make toasters or, I won't say TVs, that's it. But no, we are here to work together, hand in hand, with the Mexican society to provide the best responses to the digital and green challenges that we are facing today. And that is done with Mexican young engineers. That, by the way, what every CEO of every European company tells me is that we are very lucky to be here. Because in this country you find some of the best engineers in the world, some of them coming out of this school where we are today. So I wanted to finish in a very optimistic note. We've done a lot. Of course, we have much to do. And we are never happy, and that's really a good human characteristic, not to ever be satisfied. We have a lot to do. But as I said, we are a reliable friend partner. We are here to stay. We have been in Mexico when it wasn't easy. We are in Mexico when it's becoming better. What I'm telling is that the EU looks at Mexico as a strategic partnership and as a friendship. And on a personal note, who doesn't want to be in Mexico?
Exactly.
Who doesn't want to be
That's
here?
why we're here.
Who doesn't want to be here? So we always say that this was the best job of my life. Thank you very much to all of you.
Ambassador Érika, Bartek, thank you very much for the participation in this panel. And I think that with this optimistic note and this announcement of 75 years of Schuman Declaration, which we will be celebrating next week, we will finish this session and also this conference. I would like to thank you for being here, for asking, for participating. And I'm very glad that we could put together these four institutions. 3 of them, I work in them. The Polish Embassy, Polish Institute of International Affairs, and now Tech de Monterrey. And we are in the European Union as Poland. We have been there for 25 years now. So happy to be here, and I hope that this kind of meetings, conferences will allow us to have more contacts and to have more confidence in each other and also to know each other, which is crucial. Thank you very much, and join me in applauding.